Well, hi, Leslie. It's so nice to see you again. I haven't seen you since pre-pandemic.
I know. It's nice to see you too. Thanks. Thanks.
Hi, everybody out there who's watching this. My name's Hollye Dexter. I'm also a fellow author, friend of Leslie's. And we met when we both had books released in 2015, and we did some fun events together. I loved her book, 14, and loved going on the journey on the boat with her back then. And here she is today on a boat again. She's
Yes,
coming to us live from the boat.
yes, yes. I'm moving aboard today. We're spending the summer on the boat. So, yeah,
So yes, I'm an author, but I also have a day job as a social media director. So that's why I'm handling all the Zoom stuff today, right?
yes, exactly. I thank you
um,
for that.
you're
Absolutely.
very welcome. But anyways, we're here to talk about the newest book that Leslie has written, The Blue Butterfly, which I have found so enjoyable. Going on the whole journey with Marion Davies, and just wanted to talk with you about it because really, Leslie, we haven't had a chance to talk about it, and I'm glad we saved it for this recorded conversation so that we could really get into the details.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Yes.
Good. Okay, so I guess first what I wanted to ask, this was such a departure from your last book, 14. What inspired you to want to write about Marion Davies?
Right. I know. It is a very big departure. So while I was writing 14, we had company come and we went to Hearst Castle and we did a tour. And while we were on the tour, the tour guide said, "Did you know that Marion Davies loaned William Randolph Hearst $1 million in 1937 when he was almost bankrupt?" And I was like, "No. In fact, I don't know much about her at all. Like, why isn't she talked about more? Why don't I know this story? This is amazing because Hearst is so famous and so powerful and had so much influence in the 20s and 30s with his newspapers and his media conglomerate. But nobody really knows anything about the personal side of Marion Davies. And when I went home and I looked on the internet, I couldn't really find very much at all. But I was in the middle of writing 14. So I kind of put it aside and thought, I'd really love to write her story and be able to tell her story as far as her family life, her sisters, her parents, her, what she felt like, the age difference between the two. There's so much to explore. But I couldn't do it then. So after 14 came out, I was going to write the second memoir, which I was going to write the sequel to 14, but my sister passed away. And so I just really didn't want to write about my family for a while. I needed a break. So I picked up these notes from Marion Davies and I thought, I wonder if she's still there. I wonder if she's still living in my notes and in my heart. And I got back into my research and I ordered all of the Hearst biographies and I just sort of got into it and she was still there.
Wow. I
Wow.
can't help but think, since your book 14 was about you and your sisters and the journeys that you took, Marion Davies also comes from a family of sisters. Was that part of maybe why you related so much to her?
There's a lot actually when I got into it. Yes, that was one of them. That was one of the things is that we had sisters. I had sisters, she had sisters, and I know how that is. And I am a recovering alcoholic and she was a practicing alcoholic and I know what that's like. I grew up in an alcoholic home,
Mm.
so I know what it's like to live with someone who drinks too much and doesn't remember and acts crazy. And I mean, I think her disease progressed through her life until finally at the end it was pretty unbearable for her and everyone else. But so there's quite a few things when I got into it that
Yeah.
and also the fact that Hearst was so overpowering in her life as far as guiding her. There
Yeah.
was such a big age difference between the two of them.
Yeah.
He was overwhelmingly running things as far as she didn't have a lot of input. And my father was the same way when I was growing up. He was very overpowering. And so there are some overlaps. And maybe that's what it was that really inspired me to write about her. I don't
Yeah.
know. I love Liz Gilbert's book, Big Magic, because it explains a little bit about how the inspiration and creativity works that she thinks, and I agree with her completely. I love her and her book. So anyway.
That's great. But it's interesting because you said when you first came back from Hearst Castle, you were curious about Marion Davies because of that one thing that you learned, and then you went online and you couldn't really find anything. So how hard was it to research her? Like, how were you able to find the materials to put this story together? Because I kept thinking as I was reading it, wow, how does she get all this detail about her childhood and her sisters and her mom, and just the dancing follies and all the things. Like, how did you find all of that?
Well, there's one biography written about Marion Davies that was published about 11 years after she died. And that is like a Bible in a way, because he went very deep into her life. And so I use that as like my original Bible, this biography Fred Lawrence Giles wrote. And then her autobiography, they call it an autobiography, but it's really, they found tapes that she had recorded when Hearst was still alive. She was planning to write an autobiography, and so she just started recording memories, and then they went and put them in a book. Although she was drinking a lot at the time, so they had to footnote a lot of things. Ballantine published the book, and it was edited by some editors at Ballantine, and they are given credit, and there are asterisks all over the place because she just misremembers a lot of things. So
yeah. So what was it like to, I mean, you're writing about a real person. It's one thing when you write a novel and you're just making this person up in your head, or maybe you're basing it on somebody kind of that or an amalgamation of some characters, but you're writing about a real historical person. How difficult was that for you to flesh out her whole character and breathe life into her? And were you nervous, like that anyone from her family would be like, that's not how it was, or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. Well, one of the other things I did was order all of the Hearst biographies, and all of those scholars included lots of information about Marion Davies because they were together 34 years. So there were overlapping stories that I could refer to. But as far as writing, and I went to Hearst Castle. Okay, I went to Hearst Castle. I talked to the docents there, and writing a real person, it was daunting at first until I felt like I could get her after reading all these little snippets and stories and anecdotes about her life, and how she was a tomboy when she was younger, and she stuttered when she was younger, and some things, and so showing those things in a scene, it just started coming. I wrote the book. I wrote the ending first. The last chapter was the first chapter that I ever wrote.
How interesting.
Yeah, because that's the part that just skewers me every time. The ending just.
We can't tell anybody what the ending is.
Well, I know that's the thing. It's like people, yeah, it's history, but nobody knows. It's
right.
Anyway, so then I started at the beginning of her life and started, I wanted to show her being feisty, and she was feisty and independent. And, when she finally got with Hearst on a regular basis, and she had some money behind her, she became very daring. She became very willing to try and do just about anything on the stage or on the screen. So, I think she had some trouble transitioning from the stage into movies. Movies were brand new. They were just being invented. There weren't any schools to attend to learn all these skills. It was sort of on the job training, and Hearst just promoted the heck out of her. He just really overdid it in the publicity department.
Yeah.
He was her social media coordinator.
So it sounds like you did a tremendous amount of research, including going back to Hearst Castle, getting all these books and all that. How long did you research it? And did you research it as you were writing, or did you do like a big period of research and then write?
So I did a bunch of reading and research first. And then when things started bubbling up, and I would write down certain little scenes that I thought I should include. And so it wasn't really, I didn't sit down and just write it. I sort of wrote, snippets here and there. And then as things started to take form and I started to get into her mid-20s, I could go back and patch together. It was sort of, I don't know, I was just making it up. I've never done this before. And so I just wanted to be true to her. I wanted to be true to her, and I wanted to be true to the facts as much as I possibly could. It include the facts, and you can't include everything from somebody's life. That's just not possible. You have to pick and choose what you show.
Right.
And so, I think that was the hardest part. There were so many things I wanted in there that were edited out later. I mean, the book was much, much longer when I finished it, but the editors just had to take out so many interesting things that happened, because they were just things that happened and didn't really relate to
move the story along or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So in all of that research, what would you say surprised you the most what did you learn about her that really surprised you the most?
I think I had an expectation that she was going to be a strong advocate for women, that once she got the power that Hearst had, from being with Hearst, gave her certain credibility and power, that she didn't use that more. But that was my I was sort of, imposing my own ideas on her when that's what I would have done. But she's not me, and everyone is different, and we all make choices, and it is what it is. And not everybody makes the right choice at the right time. And that's how we learn, and that's why we're human. And so it was that part I thought I was disappointed in. But then, I reached out to Paula McLean. She inspired me so much when she wrote The Paris Wife. And I reached out to her and I said, oh, I've just discovered that she's not as this heroine that I want her to be. And she wrote back and she said, and that's all the more reason why you should write about her, because we're all just regular people struggling along. And she just was given so much. You kind of expect, more from her. So
it was also a different time. And, I mean, even now women, I think, are just coming out of the mindset that there's only so much room for women to succeed. And so we have to fight each other for that one spot. You know what I mean? Like in women in corporate boardrooms and things like that, that's still going on. But imagine that at that time, how much room there was for a woman really to be successful in her own right. And so maybe, I don't know, what do I know? But I mean, maybe that has something to do with it.
You're right. And to be the mistress and not really have any cred that way. She really wanted to be the wife her whole life. She wanted to be the mother and the wife, but she was denied both of those roles. And I think that was where the most of her pain came from. Millicent would not give Hearst a divorce because it was the times again. And when you got divorced in high society, you were pretty much shunned. People didn't want to hang out with divorced people. I mean, we can't imagine that. But in New York, where it was so highfalutin and the classes were so split, Millicent didn't want to be left behind and shamed. So she refused to give him a divorce. And I guess rightly so for her. She did what she needed to do to take care of herself and her 5 sons, which she had with her. Which is a lot.
Yeah. Well, I just recently watched The Gilded Age, and I think I really understand that New York's high society thing a lot better. I didn't know all of that classism and old money and new money, and you can't be a divorced woman, and just, oh boy, I'm glad I live now.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. Me too.
So you were saying before that some really important scenes had to be edited, and it happens to every one of us. Every editor is like, you got to take out 10,000 words. No, not my babies, not my 10,000 words. But how did you decide you're on your own, like what to include and what not to include?
Well, I mean, I would go through and I tried to write all the kind of scandalous things that happened to Hearst and Davies, because those were the things that brought them into the spotlight when they didn't want any spotlight. So they were trying to hide out in the shadows as mistress and, Hearst. But things would happen at parties, and I wanted to show some of those things and how they handled it. And there was one event that happened when Marion was at a party out on Long Island at her sister's house. A neighbor came over, and they were having a fight, the husband and wife, and the wife brought a gun and she shot her husband at this party, and Marion was there, and the news people came, and the guy wasn't killed, but he was shot in the arm, and the ambulance came. It was this big thing that was on the cover of the paper. And then it was they tried to cover up the fact that Marion was there, and it got just the way that the Hearst manipulated the newspapers to delete her from different parts of her life, where she would be, and that had to go. So that scene went. I thought it was interesting, but it was a little bit of a sidebar, and so it got deleted.
Wow.
I wanted to include the historical things that everybody knows about, like the Thomas Ince death. They had the movie The Cat's Meow was about this event on Hearst's boat, with Thomas Ince, who dies on the boat. So I had to include that scene, and a lot of people say, well, what do you have that scene? And nothing really happens, except Thomas Ince dies, and then Hearst scurries away to Hearst Castle and hides out, because once again, they're at a party and someone dies or something bad happens. So
yeah, you don't want to go to a party with those two. Someone's going to end up dead or shot.
That's right. There's a lot of craziness happening.
So address a little bit the shadow over Marion Davies from Citizen Kane. Like what was that, and do you think she ever overcame it? And kind of go into that a little bit.
So Citizen Kane is known as the best movie ever made in the world, and I think that is for reasons of artistic movie making and not for necessarily the storyline. Orson Welles picked Marion Davies and William Randolph Hearst to skewer kind of in this movie, but his movie making technique is what is so astonishing, because at the time everyone was telling these chronological stories, and then Orson Welles comes to Hollywood, and he puts out this movie that is, the lighting is different, everything is different. But the point that Marion gets swept up in all of this because the character of Susan Alexander portrays Marion as, a talentless, drunk, bored mistress. And she wasn't. She worked her whole life. She made 44 films. She was making 4 movies a year. She, even though they had a lot of money, Marion worked the whole time. She wasn't just living off of Hearst's money. She was investing her money with Mary Pickford. They would drive around Los Angeles and they would pick out properties, and they would be like these little real estate moguls together. I had to delete all that stuff from my book. All the Mary Pickford friendship stuff was deleted, and that was really sad because they had a really special relationship.
That sounds like another book.
It could be, yeah. It was interesting. So anyway, I think when the movie came out in 1941, it was billed as this amazing movie, but it really kind of flopped in the theaters at the time because it was a little too artsy. But what got remembered was, the Susan Alexander is the Marion Davies role. And so it just sort of got accepted that that's who she was. She had just retired from the movies 3 years earlier. And so I think she just got dismissed. All the work that she did coming up through the silent films, transitioning to the talkies, facing her stutter, learning how to act and speak at the same time in movies. I mean, it was she did an amazing thing. And she basically has been dismissed from all the best of lists. Nobody really, gives her the respect, I think, that she deserves, maybe because she's rich, that she was with Hearst and she was a mistress, and how horrible was that? And and she did drink, but what right did Orson Welles have to skewer her and shame her like that? I mean,
he drank too.
Yeah, what right does anyone have to do that? I mean, that's her life. Anyway, yes, I have strong feelings about that.
Yeah, I can feel that she's sort of gotten under your skin a little bit. And I wonder if, not to be woo woo or anything, but if you ever felt, like the muse on your shoulder, like you were just sort of, channeling some of her story or something. Did you ever feel like that when you were writing?
Yes. I mean, yes, I did. And I asked for her to help me and guide me. And I believe in that. I believe in the energies that are flowing around us. And so I wanted to tell the best story I could. And I asked her to help me. And I asked, for direction and for guidance. And I just, yeah, I don't know. When I was talking to somebody about it one time, they said, why do you feel so passionate about her? I mean,
Yeah.
what is it? And I said, well, she died in 1961 and I was born in 1961. And maybe we just have this connection. And he stopped and he looked at me and he goes, do you think you could be her? And I was like, no, because I was born in January and she died in September of 61. So no, but I mean, there's a definite connection and I can't explain it.
Yeah. Just a kinship or something that you feel with her. I mean, just similarities in the background. But I mean, so many of us have been to Hearst Castle, and very few of us leave with the desire to like get home and start doing research on Marion Davies, I mean, you were really moved by something that day, and it was just like one simple, fact that sent you off on this kind of wild goose chase,
Well, for a woman to save a man in 1937.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, for a woman to save a man, why are we not celebrating that?
Yeah.
I mean, we celebrate all the men. We celebrate all the men and all the things they do. It's like, what about the fact that he got backed up into a corner and he ran out of money and the bank said no, and they booted him off the board, and her raising that $1 million in 2 days was like raising $19 million today in 2 days. Wow. I mean, she had a lot of stocks, a lot of real estate, a lot of cash, and she had her own investments, and she was willing to give it all to him. She didn't care. She loved him. She didn't care. And I thought that was amazing too, because a lot of people think she was in it just for the money, but I don't think her life was so great. She was I mean, it was on the outside, like when you look at her and all the gilded life she had, I mean, yeah, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of pain, a lot of heartache, a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that nobody really realizes. And all that money doesn't really make it better. Mm-hmm. It just looks like it. I mean, you have a satin pillow to lay down on it.
Yeah.
Instead of a burlap one. I don't know.
Yeah. So in that process of writing, even if you had a little muse sitting on your shoulder from time to time, what is your process? What was your process? Are you a pantser? Are you a plotter? Did you have an outline? Did you just wait for inspiration to hit you? Like, how did you work on this?
Well, I'm a new writer and I don't really have a tried and true method. I guess I'm figuring it out as I go, and writing 14 was about me, so it was easier. Writing about her, I just wrote, like I said, I wrote the scenes when I was inspired, and then I sort of threaded them all together at the beginning. Like a scene that really skewered me was when she actually invited Hearst home for dinner with her parents to get like their approval for her relationship with them, and he was married with 5 kids, and I'm like, this is so weird. And he went. I had to write that scene. That was fun. I had to write that scene because the sisters were like, what is going on here? The sisters were like poking and prodding at her and teasing her, and she was just nervous as all get out. And so that was really fun to write. And so I wrote that scene, and then I wrote the scene where she confronts him. He's like sending her gifts all the time in theater. He's sending her gifts over and over and over again at the theater. And she's just like, what's he doing this for? It's like, he's married with kids. What's he doing? So she confronts him finally. And I thought that was fun to write. So the scenes, obviously, with the dialogues are all me. But the events really happen. They really happen. So
So it sounds like you sort of wrote that you didn't necessarily write them in order. You wrote the scenes in the order of whenever you got inspired to write that scene.
Yes, kind of. I mean, and then it started becoming more chronological, and then we started moving forward chronologically. I don't know. I was making it up as I go. I don't.
Yeah. I've actually had, sometimes that's the easiest way for me to write is by a scene. And I've actually had entire conversations, usually if I'm driving or something, or I don't have my computer, this whole conversation will come into my head. And so I'll just grab my phone, my notes app, and just blah, 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 like talk the whole thing out. Did you ever have anything like that where it just came to
Yeah.
you at an inopportune time?
Yes, absolutely. I did the same exact thing when I'm driving. I'm talking into the voice recording thing and I'm getting it down so that as soon as I get home, I can get it on paper. Or what would happen, I would wake up in the middle of the night, like when my mind would be clear, and then I would have this whole thing come to me and I'd have to get up 3 o'clock in the morning and write it all down. I'm like,
That's great.
and then I just get it down. And then the next morning I would look at it and go, wow, where did that come from?
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So yeah, different times and places that the inspiration hits you. So
Did you find it more difficult or easier to write somebody else's story than writing your own? Because when you're writing your own, you have to revisit. I also have written a memoir and novels, and so when you're writing your own story, it's pretty painful to have to revisit a lot of things that you'd rather not. Was it easier for you to get in her head and write her story and not, was it less painful? Let me just say that.
yes, the short answer is yes, it was less painful. Although I did feel the pain, and reading the book, even now as I read the end, I can still tear up. It's the craziest thing. I think, what is wrong with me? I wrote this chapter.
No, that's good. That's good.
I read it and I think, God damn it.
Yeah, but that's good. I see. I have a thing where I always know I'm not done writing a book until I cry at the end. If I cry at the end, I can consider it. I can write the words "the end." If I haven't cried yet, not there. So good for you that you made yourself cry.
Yes. Oh gosh, I felt so silly. It's like,
no, and hopefully that's what your readers will feel as well.
yeah.
They'll feel moved. I mean, and then if you feel moved, then you've done your job.
Yes.
How long did it take for you to write this book?
Well, I mean, from first draft, I started writing in 2019, and I guess 2 years I worked on it off and on. I mean, I was doing other things. We were traveling, I have kids, and we had other things going on too. I wasn't writing full time all the time.
Yeah.
But I would work on it, and then I would send it to the editor, and she would send it back, and I would work on it again some more, and then so kind of back and forth for almost 2 years until I was finished.
Yeah, that's not bad. 2 years. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. I mean, because there always is that back and forth with the editor, and usually for me, rewrites take 6 months or something. It's not easy, especially if you have a job and you have other things going on. You can't
right.
just. But do you have a schedule? Like, do you sit down at a certain time in the morning? Like when you're not traveling or whatever, do you sit down and from 7 to 3 I write, or do you just write when it strikes?
I try to be disciplined, and I try to write in the morning, since I'm a morning person basically, and so I can do that, and then I can go for a walk, and then sometimes if I'm really in the flow of it, I'll know that I need to write that evening as well. It's like, oh, I've got a lot to say. A lot feels, I don't know how, it just feels like it's buzzing inside a little bit, and I need to get it all down. And so, but that's only happened honestly maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Mostly I write in the morning.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I don't know how people write late at night. I'm useless at night.
Or in a coffee shop. I can't. I mean, I've never
No,
tried.
I can't do. No music. I can't. It's got to be quiet. Yeah. Oh, I just had a question and it leapt right out of my head. But what was it? Your husband can edit this out. A good flow up until there.
I know.
Like
okay, go ahead.
a lot of new writers might be watching this interview. Writers are readers, avid readers. And, writing is not always an easy profession or way of life. So what has kept you going, and what advice would you offer to, newer writers who are on the path and getting frustrated, and, what helps keep you going, and how do you how do you stay afloat on those days when you're like, this is crap? We all feel that way at some point.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I came at it later in life, and I don't know if that makes it easier. I'm not working, I'm retired. So I've already raised my kids, and I've already run a business and sold a business. And now my husband and I are retired, and this is what I want to do in my retirement. So it's sort of my indulgence. And so for new writers who are young, I say hats off to you. I just think it's amazing that you're doing multiple things. I could never do that. And I was always asking the universe for a sign that it was time for me to write, because I didn't feel like it was time for me to write early in my life. Like, well, when I got married and when I had kids and we ran a business and we had all this stuff going on, I just didn't feel like I couldn't do it. I tried to take classes, couldn't do it.
What was the sign? You said you were waiting for a sign to know when it was time for you to write. What was that?
So I finally got the sign, and when I was 51, when Judy Reeves, who is a writing guru and mentor here in San Diego, who used to teach at UCSD, and anyway, she called me, and I'd taken some classes from her at UCSD, and she called or emailed and said, I'm starting a reading critique group, and I would really like you to be in it. And I thought, this is the door, David. This is the door the universe has been. I just got my invitation. I have to commit to this group 110%. Everything else, kids, sit down. You guys are making your own meals. Everyone's on their own. I'm writing my book now. This is it. This is my opportunity to work with some other writers, like 8 other writers in this group. And I just saw that as my sign from the universe. And so I gave it everything. And that's where I wrote 14. So
I love it. So you're just about launching Blue Butterfly now. Everybody's going to have it in their hands soon and be devouring it like I did. What's next? Anything like tapping you on the shoulder? Any thoughts of what you might want to write next?
I feel this sense of obligation to finish the story of my family, the people who've written or read 14. People are still reading it today, which is amazing. And they're sending me emails saying, what happened next? What happened next? What happened to all you girls? We want to know the ending of your family. What happened? Like, not the ending, but I mean, like, how did you grow up? What happened? So I think that's what I'm doing. I'm going to do the sequel memoir because then I'm so excited to maybe write a romance or something fun, another novel. I don't know, but I need to get this memoir done.
Yeah, it's in you, kicking to get out, huh?
Yeah,
I understand. Well,
what about you? What are you writing?
What am I writing? I actually have a novel out on submission right now, and I did start another novel, and I'm about 7 chapters into that one, so it's very, very much in the beginning stages, but I'm just waiting to hear back if any publishers are going to pick up this last book, and it's horrible. It's just the worst.
Horrible waiting.
It's really hard to wait. So, but yeah, I'm writing.
Well, I wish you all the best. I do. I hope they call tomorrow. I do.
Thank you. I hope so too. I'm waiting for my little tap on the shoulder. Where's my sign from the universe? Let's go.
That's right.
But I've so loved getting caught up with you. I haven't gotten to see you in person since probably 2016 is when we did our event. It was so cool because we did a panel and we opened for Janet Fitch, who's like one of my favorite writers ever, White Oleander. Oh my God. And that was so fun. It was such a fun day. We went and had coffee and we hung out, and
it was fun. It was great. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's nice hanging out with you on Zoom. I wish I could be on your boat with you, but maybe some other time.
Thanks. Yeah, and thank you for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You want to say anything to the readers out there?
Keep reading.
Keep writing.
Keep writing. Yeah. definitely.
Right. Looks so great, Leslie, and we'll talk soon. Let's do this again. It's
All
fun.
right. Thanks. Thanks, Holly.
You're very welcome.